Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Beyond Limits podcast. I'm your host, Eli Shalita.
And I'm your co-host, Greg Vaughn.
And today we have a very awesome topic we want to talk to you about, and that is on the subject of overcoming setbacks. Everybody that's listening to this podcast has faced or is facing a challenge currently, or you're going to face a challenge in the near future. But the reality is, it's not what comes your way as far as problems and setbacks, it's how you react to those challenges and setbacks that determines whether you're going to be successful or otherwise. So from my experience and my co-host experience, Greg, on this particular topic, we want to offer some practical ways on how to overcome setbacks that life has brought your way. So we have 5 practical tips that we want to share with you in order to help you overcome your setback.
Tip number 1 is to accept responsibility. Sometimes we have to realize that we cause a lot of our own problems. A lot of the people that I've worked with over the years, they come in, they have drug addictions, they have personal problems, financial situations, marital problems, and they allow their issues to affect how they work. And so I kind of have to do a little bit of investigating. You know, what is your problem? Why are you slacking? What's the situation? And they'll open up and they'll say, well, I've got this in my life and I've got this problem, this drug addiction is getting a hold of me. And what basically it boils down to is I have to tell them, you know, nobody made you addicted to drugs. You know, that was something that you did yourself. You have to accept responsibility for that. And you know, people come in, and I've even had customers where they come in with their personal issues, and they'll open up to me. Again, I'm not sure why they open up to me, but you know, I open myself, I make myself available, and they talk to me. Really, it comes down to you've got to accept the fact that a lot of the problems that we have in life, we're the ones that cause these issues.
Right, Greg, and unless we have an epiphany, an attitude, a paradigm shift that causes us to realize we have caused some of the problems in our lives. Now, I'm not saying that we've caused every problem in our lives, but some of the problems that may or may not have happened to us, we have caused. And we have got to understand that sometimes it is me that's causing the problem to myself. And so we understand, though, that obviously there are some things we can control and some things that are out of our control. But the things that you can control, you need to change and realize, you know, I may have caused this issue or this problem. Let's give you for an example, somebody that went through a bad divorce, and, you know, maybe their spouse contributed to the majority of the problems in the marriage, but you know what? They weren't little angels. Perhaps they may not have started the problem, but maybe the way they reacted to the problem that has caused the other partner to lash out or do whatever they did. Again, we're not saying you're the cause of the problem. We're saying that some of the problem might be contributed to the way you react or deal with things. And so in order for you to overcome a particular setback, you can't just say, well, it's all their fault. It's the government's fault. It's the spouse's fault. It's the finance company's fault. No, some of the things you've done, hey, nobody forced you to buy that car that you couldn't afford. Just because they repoed it does not mean, you know, they're the bad people. Maybe it's the way you handle your finances poorly is the reason why they came and took the car. Maybe you missed a couple of payments and you weren't on time. So sometimes it's not everybody else's fault. Sometimes I've got to look at myself, take a deep look within myself and say, I've got to accept some responsibility to the problems I caused, because the reason why I'm in this predicament in the first place is because I put myself there sometimes. And this brings us to tip number 2, and that is turning that disadvantage into an advantage. Now that you've accepted some part of the problem, that you recognized you may have caused an issue, now you look at it as not a curse, but you look at this problem as a blessing in disguise. In other words, that stumbling block can serve a purpose by becoming a stepping stone if you realize that you are able to take advantage and learn a lesson from that problem that you have faced in the past. Let me give you a personal example of mine. As I've said before on this podcast, I have worked for over a decade with charities and nonprofits. And when you work in groups of that setting, a lot of times you're working with volunteers, unpaid professionals that come and help you. And I've observed this many times, I'm sure Greg has as well. Not every situation is ideal. Now, I want everything to work out for the best, and I want no problems and everyone to collaborate and get together with no problems whatsoever. But the reality is, I have been through situations that I've worked with unpleasant people, people that are supposed to be exciting and passionate about what they did, lose their drive, lose their passion, and oftentimes some quit the job before it's even finished. And here I am left with the added pressure of not only managing people, but now having to do some menial things that I wasn't even expecting to do. And oftentimes I face setbacks with people leaving, quitting, and I could easily look at myself and say, I'm the victim. I've done all I could do to work with these people and be as successful and as helpful as I can be for them. And here they have turned their backs on me. They quit in the middle of the project. What am I going to do? It's all of their fault and none of my fault. Well, to be quite honest with you, I have learned in working with people that sometimes, even when they quit on you, there is a blessing in that curse, that supposed curse. You can turn your disadvantage into an advantage. Well, how, you may ask? Well, it's all about the mindset. You've got to realize, hey, I may have lost some of these people, but maybe they were contributing to the failure of my project. They were maybe unreliable. They could have been people that are hard to work with, but one thing for sure is, now that I lost them, it's not so bad. Because here's some things I've learned. I've learned how to be a better leader, how to be a better manager. And in addition to that, I've learned in the near future that I don't want this type of people in this particular position. I've learned that maybe those people that quit were not the best suited people for the job. And so the next time I have somebody working their position, I'm thinking, hey, have somebody that has different skill set, that has different attitude, that has different personality, that can take that job and be productive and fruitful and take that job to the next level. So to conclude this point, how to turn your disadvantage into an advantage? Well, you got to remember to ask yourself always this question: what have I learned from my mistakes or my failures or my setbacks? And this is what's going to help you on your path to overcoming setbacks.
And that brings us to our third point, which is to keep pushing and keep adjusting. There'll always be setbacks, something that's going to hold you back from maybe something you think you need to be doing. Like personally, I went to school. I started college back in 2008, and I was going for computer engineering. And I started it, and I got about halfway through with it, and it was fine. It was something I enjoyed doing. Something, computers were something I was always into, building and repairing and whatever. But about halfway through college, I was offered the general manager position at this particular business. And although you could have looked at it, I could have looked at it like it was a setback in my personal career. Oh man, I'm never going to have this degree. I'm never going to get this computer engineering position. Really, what it came down to was it just turned my disadvantage into an advantage. My starting pay coming out of computer engineering school would have been minimal. I mean, compared to what I was going to get as a store manager. And so it was a no-brainer. At first, it seemed like, no, it's too much pressure, it's too much work, and it was just a setback in my personal life. But what it came down to was, no, this is where it's at. This is the next stepping stone. This is how I'm going to become better. Of course, I didn't know what I was getting myself into. I didn't know what I was going to learn, but because of that, what we would have called a setback or a disadvantage, now I have so much experience in dealing with people and management. And it's an amazing, sometimes you just have to enjoy the journey. Again, we're always going to have problems. We're always going to have something that's going to creep its ugly head up and step in our path. But sometimes, there's things you just can't control, again, and there's things you can control. And the one thing that you can control is your attitude. You can control how you react to it. You can control, what you say and what you do, and put your negative thoughts to the side and keep pushing and keep moving forward.
Now let me take us to the next tip, and that is tip number 4, being present and helping others. Now it goes without saying that every one of us, some way, shape, or form, has experienced what it's like to have failure or setback or a shortcoming in their personal lives. But the key is not to stay there, staying down, but the key is to getting back up and showing up and adding value to the people around us. So what am I saying? I'm saying every relationship that we have, I challenge every one of you to over-deliver in business and in personal life, whatever situation, whatever the occasion is, show up and add value. What am I saying? What I'm saying is make helping people your priority. Make it your obsession. And eventually what's going to happen is you no longer will compare or measure your opportunities against your past mistakes, but rather you're going to measure them against your future's limitless potential. Let me give you a quick and practical example. I've worked with people from across cultures, walks of life, ethnicities, backgrounds, people that had setbacks, and I've seen people go through marriages and finances, losing homes, and one thing stood the test of time. One thing separated the ones that bounced back up from their setbacks from the ones that stayed down with the failures. What was the difference, you may ask? Well, the difference was the ones that bounced back up from the setbacks not only realized that they had a problem, not only that they looked at themselves and turned their disadvantages to an advantage, not only did they keep pushing and adjusting, but a lot of them, or should I say the overwhelming majority of them, were present and they were helping others. Instead of focusing on their own problems, instead of focusing on their own set of mistakes they've done and living in the past, a lot of them said, you know what, I'm bouncing back up, I'm learning from my mistakes, I'm turning my disadvantage into advantage, but on top of that, I'm going to be present to helping others. Even though I may have problems, emotional, psychological, mental problems in my life, I am not going to withdraw myself and withdraw the blessings that I bring to the table when I'm around people. No, I'm going to use everything in my power to be an encouraging person to the others around me. I'm not going to stay in my failures, but instead of staying in my failures, I'm bouncing back up and I'm going to be present and sharing my experience and vast wealth of knowledge with others so I can be a blessing to the people around me. And you know what, Greg, I found in my experience? I found that the people that employ this attitude are the people who are experts at overcoming setbacks. So next time you have a debilitating setback in your life or a problem you feel like is too big to handle, don't just bounce back up and stay to yourself. Bounce back up and be present and help others that need to hear from you.
And that brings us to our 5th and final point. So in the last point, we learned that it's important to help and encourage others. But the 5th point is that we really need to find people that will encourage us. It's important that we put ourselves around great men and women, people that we know are great leaders, people that have been successful in overcoming setbacks, have been successful in their marriage, have been successful in their finances, whoever it may be, whether it's a speaker that you find on YouTube or someone personal that's close to you, someone that you can link up together with and get close and really just seek knowledge from them and gain understanding from them and just putting yourself around people that will encourage you, people that are positive, people that will help you in any manner, in any way that they can. You know, in the years that I've worked with people, there's a deficiency in friendships, and good friendships, rather, I should say. And these crew people that I've worked with over the years, they put themselves around very negative people that are make poor life decisions. They put themselves around people that are very unsuccessful. And we'll pass people like that, and we'll come across people like that. But our main goal is we really need to avoid them and really find ourselves some people and put good men and good women around us that will help us, that will encourage us, and that will keep pushing and keep making us better to help overcome our setbacks.
So to summarize what Greg was talking about finding others that encourage you, you perhaps want to ask yourself this very important question, and that is, who am I going to have in my corner? Who am I going to surround myself with that's going to determine my success in the future? One author, I forget the name eludes me at this point in time, but he said it like this: show me your friends and I'll show you your future. If you want to be successful and overcome setbacks that life throws at you left and right, you've got to understand that having friends in your corner that you can rely on is not optional, but it's essential.
As we wrap up today's talks, we just want to say thank you for listening. And if you enjoyed this podcast, make sure you hit the like button. And if you desire to hear more about overcoming setbacks, please subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you in the next podcast.